Welcome to the wild, wild west of adulting with your co-hosts, Anyeti Essien and Christina Farinacci Roberts. Today's episode is called Who's Caring for the Caregiver? Who's Caring for the Caregiver? So, Christina, I saw recently in one of my feeds a really poignant message from a physician who was working. She's a single mom. She works in a hospital, taking care of a lot of patients, many of them who are coming down with COVID-19 symptoms, some with varying degrees of severity. She has a teenage son. She also has aging parents. And so she was really stressed out about not wanting to expose her parents to any potential risks due to the fact that she's had quite a high degree of interaction with patients. So she hasn't been able to see her mom and dad. Her dad would come, a couple times a week to help out with her son. Her mom is more homebound, and so she has had to limit her interaction with them, who they would otherwise be providing support to her, whether it's through childcare or for her providing support to them as a child of aging parents. Similarly, she's struggling because, she doesn't have the luxury of working from home. She's got to be out there in the clinical environment giving care to patients. And she has a son that needs to be homeschooled. And so, he's not necessarily getting all his assignments turned in on time. They're really sort of working through not just the operational logistics of adjusting to this new life under quarantine, but also thinking about, some of the emotional needs as well for her son. And so you could sort of tell in her story as she was sharing it, just how much she was at her breaking point. Because a lot of times when we navigate life's challenges, we tend to lean on those we love and draw closer to them. And in this environment where we're sort of trying to really keep up the social distancing, it's hard to navigate that without sort of that safety net that we would typically rely on. So really got me thinking about, what are some of the tools that folks can sort of navigate through and share amongst each other to lighten that load for many of us who probably were feeling stretched thin prior to COVID-19, but certainly now feeling an overwhelming burden, really that sandwich generation that's between and taking care of both elderly or aging parents as well as young children. So curious what your thoughts are on all this.
I think the first part is just acknowledging that this is a really difficult time and it's okay to not be okay, right? That we are, we're allowed to feel whatever we're feeling. But I actually just had, I zoomed into, I'm on the advisory council for a local Y here, YMCA, and the executive director had asked me to get on a Zoom call with some of their Achievers program, Black and Latino Achievers program students, because they're not able to meet as they would normally meet. And it was their first meeting, and they just wanted to check in with the students and, just allow them. What I shared was like, feel what you're feeling, but don't stop there, right? So, our emotions are a direct product of whatever it is that we're focusing on. And so if we focus on what we can't do, what we don't have, then that is going to perpetuate feelings of frustration or sorrow or angst. And so, when you start to feel your thoughts move in those directions, try to pivot in your own mind and shift what it is that you're focusing on. Like, what is it that you can do? What is it that you still have that actually is not impacted or maybe even heightened by the situation that we're in? So that's a starting point. But I think in terms of practical things, this is a time to really lean on your tribe and figure out how we can both collaborate and support. So a lot of us are having to do things that are similar to one another, whether it's homeschooling the kids, whether it's getting groceries and meal prepping, cleaning the house, whatever it might be. But again, to take a real life example, I've been volunteering and helping to give out school lunches at our local, one of our local city schools. And I've been noticing that there have been a lot of moms who come in and pick up for several families. And I envision that maybe they're all doing something collectively. So how it might relate to some of you is, could you team up with 4 other moms and figure out who's gonna buy, actually even better, who is gonna come up with meal plans, like recipes, and come up with the ingredient list that would be needed. And then maybe somebody else's job is to actually go to the grocery store and pick up all the groceries. And what's nice with, like, you know, Zelle, PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, there's easy ways for people to get the money to you so you can, you know, don't have to bear that burden. Somebody goes to get the groceries, distributes them, drops them off. Maybe even if you're getting really crazy, maybe somebody is cooking and doing all of the meal prep, or maybe you're splitting up the meal prep. You know, somebody's doing the protein, somebody doing the sides. Maybe there's somebody who is, maybe you're splitting up the homeschooling needs. A lot of times, you know, moms are friends with their child's playmates, so they're in the same age bracket, they're in the same grade. What if you all commit to doing Zoom, being the Zoom teacher, and the kids are in front of the computer with that one mom for 1 to 2 hours, and then you're only doing that once out of the 5 days, and those other 4 days during that 1 to 2 hours, you can be dedicating yourself to something else that needs to get done. But that's, I think, maybe like a practical strategy. But even maybe before that is allowing yourself to identify what is an essential versus a non-essential. What are things that can get delegated, whether it's like, you know, having your teenage son or daughter step up in some way because they're capable, or whether it's letting some things, eliminating some things and letting some things go that would have normally been part of the routine, but right now, you know, it's one more thing to the to-do list that doesn't need to be there.
I love those recommendations because, you know, growing up, my mom would always say it takes a village to raise a child. And, you know, I think it's even true in other parts of the world where we have more of a community vibe going on in terms of whether it's around childcare, even if you're the one that has a baby, folks around you, whether it's extended family, pitch in to sort of help and support. I think here where, you know, families may be far apart, your friends and neighbors, maybe colleagues become sort of that extended family and who you can lean on during times of support. But you mentioned something really important about feeling what you're feeling and being able to sort of put a name to it. I know a lot of times we want to keep a brave face up and let everyone know it's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine, when deep down inside it may not be fine. And so I think there's a wide range of whether it's support services, resources that are available to folks who maybe are feeling that they're not okay, and knowing that it's okay to not be okay. And while you may want to be able to put on a brave face for the children, or, you know, elderly parents, so they don't know, you know, that you're really sort of struggling, or they don't worry, that it's okay to reach out and ask for help. So I think there's a range of tools and solutions, whether it's around meditation and mindfulness. You know, the Headspace app is really great in terms of having a way to tap in and get some of that support that you may need. And I think, you know, on the other end of it, you know, if you're finding that there's a lot of things you're juggling through and you think it may be helpful to talk with a specialist, you know, finding perhaps a mental health therapist or counselor who is, many of them are now switching to virtual and online appointments. So it really does make it more convenient for you to access the services in a way where you don't maybe have to take off half a day and drive across town to get in and get an in-person visit. You can do it right from the comfort of your smartphone. So
Mm-hmm.
thinking about some of those tools and recognizing, you know, it's okay to sort of raise your hand and ask for support, I think is really key. You know, one of the things I think as folks are sort of juggling this time of uncertainty is that there are no rules. We talk about not having a roadmap, and
Mm-hmm.
that there's no sort of perfect way to navigate this time. Nobody's done it before, so we're all sort of making it up on the fly. So I think that that idea of collaboration that you hit on really is helpful as well, because then people can share what are some of the best practices that have worked with them. What are you seeing in the feed? Like, what are people what are the main challenges they're working through, or some of the struggles that they're facing as they're navigating this time?
I mean, I think we've talked a lot about the kid portion, that being the parent. But I think on the other end is there's definitely challenges with being the child. So
Mhm.
um, for those of for those people who are physically distant from their folks, where they can't do the grocery shopping or pick up the prescriptions, I think that adds a little bit more um, of a challenge and an anxiety around that. There are ways that, again, tapping into community resources, you a lot of times can, there's a church or there is a YMCA. There's different organizations that are stepping up in your parents area that you can try to reach out to and make sure that your parents get on that list too, whether it's Meals on Wheels or there's a lot of organizations that are just helping to do that errand running, like prescriptions or whatever. And then there's the social emotional piece. So even if whether you're close or you're distant, um, I've been seeing people do like story time. So whether it's the child can read a story and do a video, either a video that they send or a live Zoom, or flip flop, the grandparent is reading the story to the child. I think that's a way to still feel connected. Having your kids drop pictures and sending them via text, or again, just showing it up in a video. Those are ways that people can still feel loved and cared for and thought of, that still keeps everybody safe when it comes to the social distancing pieces. And if you are physically close enough, and you do have to run some errands for your parents, trying to be more efficient about that. So instead of taking like weekly grocery trips, can you buy enough that you're doing more of like a 2 week, maybe even a 4 week, if your parents are more willing to have, frozen foods or canned foods, or again, if you do a meal prep, if you take one big day to just meal prep a bunch of meals, and then you can give them to them in those containers that they can freeze and have like literally a month's worth of food that they can just keep pulling out. I think those are ways to still do what you need to do, um, but also get stuff done.
No,
And
that's
I think
really,
something we haven't touched upon that I'd love to hear from you is more, okay, once all the things have been done, and there's going to be things that don't get done, but we have to carve out that space for self-care, and what that self-care can look like in a time like this, when you can't go get a massage or can't get your nails done, or whatever.
yeah, I mean, I think I was just resonating with you about, the taking care of the elderly parents. I remember after my mom passed away, I would go back and forth to visit my dad, and I would do the grocery shopping. I would batch freeze, big, uh, servings of meals for him so that he could take them out and defrost them as needed. And that sort of lightened the stress on me, just knowing that he was okay. And I think it's the same when we think about ourselves. So it's a little bit anticipatory, right? So it's knowing that there's going to be hard times coming. There's going to be um, setbacks, disappointments, challenges. So how can we sort of, in an anticipatory way, prepare for that and brace ourselves for that? So I think one thing that's helpful, you talked about massages, but just carving out a little bit of time and space in a day. So we have the to-do list, we have the never-ending list of things that need to be done around the house, obligations, work obligations, family obligations. If we're in a multi-generational household, that's exponential, if you will, but trying to carve out that quiet time in a day where you're able to maybe listen to a podcast that's sort of uplifting your mind and sort of transporting your imagination in a way to sort of think about the future and not so much sort of ruminating on the present. Learning a new skill, we talked about that in terms of maybe taking a course or things like that. Having just empty space, maybe it's a walk where you're able to clear your mind, or some quiet time for meditation, as we've talked about previously. Just making sure that you find a way to fit you into the equation. Oftentimes we hear that expression of putting your oxygen mask on before, your neighbors. In this case, it's probably an N95 mask, but,
Mhm.
it's really thinking about,
Better not be, because you better be donating those to the hospitals that need
gotta
them.
go to the hospitals. Okay, somebody who has healthcare workers and my family, definitely get those to the folks who need them. But I think there's self-care sometimes feels like it can be selfish. And so understanding the role and the place that taking care of you, making sure that you are good, solid, have a solid footing underneath your feet so that you can then care for others, I think is really powerful. So sort of eliminating some of the guilt and shame, that comes along with making time for yourself, because I think it's a little bit of a hurdle, particularly for women who wear multiple hats, that we have to all think about.
Well, I think that's a perfect segue to our closeout karaoke because sometimes, we can feel like we're not enough and, we could be better. I think most people would probably be familiar. This is probably the most contemporary song we've sung thus far. Um,
Yeah.
this is Lauren Daigle's "You Say," and I like that it's a feel good, lift me up song.
I keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. Every single lie that tells me I will never measure up. Am I more than just the sum of every high and every low? Remind me once again just who I am, because I need to know. Oh,
You say I am alive, and I can't feel a thing. You say I am strong, and I think I am weak. You say I am held, and I am falling short. When I don't belong, you say I'm yours, and I believe, oh, I believe what you say of me. All right.
all right. We've done it again, Christina. That's a classic. We've stepped up our game. We're getting a little bit more contemporary. If you guys have song requests, okay, share the song requests in the comments. Let us know what songs you want to hear. Also, let us know what tips have worked for you. What's your self-care regimen looking like?
Be blessed.
Be blessed and have a beautiful day, everyone. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.